Hi folks, today we're going to be talking about St Serf's Church, which is behind me, and its connection to Robert the Bruce. St Serf was the patron saint of Orkney, Scotland, and also because of the extreme sanctity of his person, he was made Pope for 7 years. Now, this church is also connected with Robert the Bruce, who was one of the early kings of Scotland in the 13th century. He reigned from about 1306 to 1329, and his organs are interred here at the church, which is a medieval structure that dates actually further back to the 12th century and rose to prominence when it was known that the organs of Robert the Bruce had been buried here.
As you can see in the ruins of one section of the church, well, the bear's looking at a plaque in the camera, but below that plaque is the burial grounds of the Dixon family, who acquired these lands in 1805 and adopted the ruins of the church as their family burial grounds. The plaque that you just saw when the video first started is the plaque that was erected by Robert Dixon for the burial grounds and the ruins of the church. So we can approach now to get a closer look. Those are very real headstones, by the way. People are actually buried here.
Oh, look at there's a coat of arms. Cortes Fortuna Juba. What does that mean, Yak? You're the one with all the Yakology.
Well, actually, that's Latin. That doesn't come under Yakology, but I'll tell you anyway. It means fortune favours the brave. Probably their family. I don't know, I'm not sure. I don't know. It's not a clan coat of arms though. I've no idea, but I know it's a Catholic cross. This flag was erected in 1885 to the sacred memory of his father.
This is a commemorative plaque to sort of like show where King Robert the Bruce, his organs were buried in the ruined bounds of St Serf's Church.
Possibly.
Possibly. It was the wish of the monarch to go and visit the Holy Land. Unfortunately, he never made it, but after his death in 1329, one of his clansmen took his heart.
It was a Knights Templar, actually.
Yeah, they took his heart out of his body and put it in a silver casket, and then his clansmen took it with him on a journey to Spain.
It was still a Knights Templar uniform, not a clansman.
And to take part in one of the Knights Templar skirmishes, shall we call them. And unfortunately, all of the men were killed, but the remaining parts of his clansman's body was recovered along with the silver casket, and it was brought back to Scotland and then buried at Melrose Abbey, which we will tell you about in a further video in this.
Silly unicorn can't tell the difference between a clansman and a Knights Templar.
She's still wonderful, but anyway, Robertus De Gratia Rex Scotorum, that's what it's headed by. You might want to go and look that up.
Maybe that's his full Latin name.
Yeah.
Come on round the other side of the church with the unicorn and I, even though we call it the other side anymore. There's hardly any wall or structure there, but still, part of the building. Or it was. Yeah. You know, when you really get down to it and think about it, 1623 was only 400 years ago. This church was still in operation. There it is again, fortune favours the brave. The same coat of arms, the same crest. I remember reading this. It's a bit faded. You can't really see it properly, but it's another memorial to Robert Dixon. He died in 1912. That's good, at least I never got to live to see the World War. Or should I say the Great War. To be historically accurate.
Another interesting fact about Robert the Bruce is that he was the successor to one of the most important figures in Scottish history, who was William Wallace, who we all know is probably one of the most famous participants in the Scottish Wars of Independence against Edward I of England. And in fact, Robert the Bruce also took part in the campaign of William Wallace against Edward I before he then succeeded him as guardian and then King of Scotland himself.
I think he's prejudiced against the English, you recall, and that was his whole thing, that was his life story. He hated English people. Well, he didn't hate English people, he hated the English monarchy. And English, I don't know, he just didn't, he wanted Scotland to be Scotland.
Because the English throne would not recognise Scotland's independence. And so therefore...
well, yeah, but at the time we were still a sovereign country.
But
well, we still are, but...
England kept on raiding us.
Yeah, I know.
And so therefore...
That's how it all happened.
That's how it all happened. William Wallace, Robert the Bruce, and probably several others were all part of the Scottish Wars of Independence. It wasn't just a singular war, there were many, many battles between 12...
Wasn't there only 2 wars and many battles on those wars?
Yes, many, many battles.
2
small
wars?
battles. Yeah,
2 wars.
But 2 big
Better
ones.
not do it the other way, that's right.
The Battle of Falkirk and the Battle of London were one of the 2 main ones.
Actually, it's rude.
And smaller ones.
That was a rude gesture in medieval times, it's not really offensive anymore.
There were other very smaller ones, like the Battle of Loudon Hill, which then meant that Robert the Bruce, if many of you know the story, he had to run from the English, take shelter in a cave, which we assume is somewhere off the coast of Ireland, before he regrouped in 1307 and came back and routed the English yet again.
Which Marillion song contains the word spider?
I don't know, beats me.
I have no idea.
One last fact. Did you know that it was offensive in medieval times to show 2 fingers facing the other way than this, which I won't do because YouTube will hate me for it. Because these are your bow fingers, and they would get cut off by the enemy if an archer was captured, so they couldn't draw anymore.
And also, we have what? How many other places to visit regarding Robert? 3.
Probably 3 at least.
3 at least. So, watch this space.
Anywho, that's been our visit to the St Serf's Parish Church. And now, the yak, the unicorn and the bear behind the camera are off. Probably eat and drink because we need to, because that's essential for survival. Robert the Bruce probably ate and drank as well. I think you eat and drink as well, don't you?
Well everyone, that was interesting. That little church that you saw there, or the ruins of the church, used to be actually totally covered in rhododendrons and various other vegetation, and then it was cleaned up and all restored. And it's looking really nice now for remembrance purposes. And what really interested me, as I had mentioned, was the Marillion connection, because they sang about a spider, and that was in one of their songs, and that was called Bittersweet. Anyway, after Robert the Bruce had seen a spider, as we know in legend or truth, I'm not too sure, he saw a spider continue to rebuild its web, and that spurred him on. And then there was a chap called Bernard Barton, kind of mid 17th to mid 18th century roughly. He wrote a poem about it, and I think it was called Bruce and the Spider. And anyway, enough about weaving spiders. This is a bear, and as one of my favourite Star Trek actors once said, "Live long and prosper."